You met a girl while
No. The girl.
It's like we can communicate without speaking.
Are you crying?
I can't leave them behind.
I will find a way to take care of you both.
Now give me a hug.
A lot of news to get to tonight.
And it's good news.
Take a look.
Good evening from NBC News election headquarters.
Thank you so much.
Hey Sandy, hey Gina.
Booyah! Let me show you what it's all about. Check it out.
Listen, we're your parents. We're here to help you. Welcome home, kiddo. It's time to get to work.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to this year's New York Latino Film Festival. My name is Maria Kay, and I am producing the panels for this year's festival. We have a great lineup for the filmmakers and audience this year, and I'd like to introduce Calixto, founder of the film festival, to kick off this panel.
Thank you, Maria, for all your work. You've been amazing at producing these panels, so I give you the kudos. You made this happen, and I would like to thank our friends and family over at NBC, Comcast, NBCUniversal, Telemundo, for their help in bringing the familia in to not only partner with us for another year of the festival, but in helping to put together these amazing panels. So I thank each and every one of you. But yes, welcome to the seminar, Breaking into Studio in the TV Network System at NBC Universal. During this discussion, you'll gain valuable insights into the groundbreaking, highly competitive talent pipeline programs over at NBC Universal, and how you, as emerging writers, directors, composers, and creative talent, can take your work and careers to the next level. This casual conversation is comprehensive and will be led by the NBC Universal executives who oversee these programs as they introduce you to recent alumni who will share their personal experiences, along with helpful application tips and how they use these programs as launchpads for their careers. From the television side, you'll meet the Senior Directors of Talent Development and Inclusion at NBC, Grace Moss and Jandice Cardoso. Hello. But first, to kick it off, is Michael Pagarian and Rosemary Palacios from the Global Talent Development and Inclusion team at Universal Pictures. Thanks everyone for joining in.
Thanks, Calixto. Thanks, Maria. Hi, everyone. I'm Michael Pagarian. I'm a manager on the Global Talent Development and Inclusion team.
I'm Rosemary Palacios, also a manager of the Global Talent Development and Inclusion team at Universal.
So we're going to start off by giving a brief overview of Global Talent Development and Inclusion, also known as GTDI. We'll probably use that for the rest of the conversation. We're a 4-year-old department. We were established in 2010 by Donald Langley, the chairman of the Universal Film Entertainment Group, and we're led by Janine Jones-Clark and Emerlyn Lampatak. We're the first of its kind diversity, equity, and inclusion group at a film studio. Our team serves as a resource to the entire film group, which includes Universal Pictures, Focus Features, DreamWorks Animation, Film and TV, Fandango, and Rotten Tomatoes.
And our mission is to discover and foster up-and-coming talent in front of and behind the camera, as well as workforce talent. So we achieve this through a multi-tiered approach, and our most notable and public-facing efforts are through our inclusive creative pipeline programs and initiatives.
So I'm going to give you a little overview of our initiatives, the first being our Universal Directors Initiative. This is a 2-year at-will initiative. It's a partnership with Sundance Film 2 and AFI Directing Workshop for Women, where talent who have come through those 2 programs and organizations are able to apply. That being said, last year we expanded the initiative and extended invitations to filmmakers from American Black Film Festival, as well as the New York Latino Film Festival. The goal of this initiative, of the Directors Initiative, is to enhance filmmakers' knowledge of the studio system process and build upon their network of champions across the studio with executives, directors, and term deal producers. Next, I'm going to talk about our Composers Initiative. Back in 2018, when we were doing some research, we found out that of the top 200 grossing films, only 3% of composers were women, and there wasn't even enough data to show composers of color. So right there, we knew that we needed to do something about that, and so we partnered with our colleagues and friends in the Universal Film Music, on the Film Music team to create the Universal Composers Initiative. This also is a 2-year at-will initiative. It was originally 1 year, but we expanded it to give the composers an opportunity to strengthen their relationships at the studio and also build their career momentum. This is open to new and experienced composers or musical talent. And while in the initiative, composers receive executive sponsorship from the Film Music team. They're also considered for music production opportunities across NBCUniversal based on the studio's needs. In the first cycle, a few of the composers, some of the exciting opportunities that came up for the composers were they got to score promo spots for NBC Entertainment. They demoed and scored 2 DreamWorks animation shorts. They also composed original themes for NBCU sports shows, and then also got to demo and score for a Focus Features film.
And I can jump in about our Animation Writers Program. So this is one of our newest programs, and it is a year-long paid program. And it is in partnership with DreamWorks Animation, Illumination, and Universal Pictures Home Entertainment. So there are actually 3 tracks within this program. So you have your feature track, and within the TV track, you can apply for either preschool ages 3 to 5 or kids 6 to 11. In order to apply, applicants just must submit a personal essay, and for the feature track, it's expected that you submit a feature spec script and a feature treatment that's different from your original spec. And then on the TV side, whether it's preschool or kids 6 to 11, we just ask that you submit a spec script based on our approved spec list and an original pilot so we can get a sense of your voice. And then throughout the program, writers will experience a robust curriculum where they learn about every department that an animation writer would interact with. So not only will you become very familiar with the pipeline, you'll also understand where your part as a writer comes in. For features, they will write 2 feature scripts for potential development consideration. And then on the TV side, you'll write 2 spec scripts, and it will be used for consideration for current series potential staffing. And all writers will be mentored by producers and executive advisors in animation, and the application will reopen next year. And then for our live action writers program, this is probably our most well-known program. It is also a year-long paid program, and it's our longest running. We just started our 6th cycle earlier I guess it's already September, in August. And it is, during the program, you are exclusive to the studio, but in order to apply also, you should submit a personal essay and then a feature spec script and a feature treatment that is also different from your feature spec. Throughout the program, you will write 2 feature film scripts that would be considered for development with a studio, and then you'll be paired with a studio creative advisor and a producer advisor. So, examples from previous advisors are Eva Longoria, Kerry Washington, Hiram Garcia, Amy Pascal, and so forth. But usually they're with people that are term deal producers within the Universal family. The program is designed to expose writers to the studio system process and enhance their craft and professional development skills, and really just set them up for post-program success. Our custom curriculum includes interactive roundtable discussions and workshops with experts and industry leaders. So throughout the whole process, your scripts are eligible for development consideration. That includes the script that you submit. So the applications for 2021 will open later this year. And then to learn more for our programs and initiatives and receive any updates or announcements, please just follow us on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram at UniTalentDev. With that in mind, we'd like to also invite Andrew Ruiz, our alumni of the 2019 Universal Writers Program, to join us to talk about his experience in the program and share some of his advice on, for any of the writers that are thinking of applying.
All right. Welcome, Andrew.
Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for having me. As a homesick New Yorker here in Los Angeles, I have to say it is a real honor to be part of the New York Latino Film Festival this year. Thanks so much for having me.
Sweet. We're gonna get right into it, Andrew.
Great.
So I'd love to give the audience just like an overview and some insight into your background. So can you just talk about your background, and then your journey as a writer to get to this point in your career?
Sure. That question's always interesting because I think they're very much intertwined. When I was growing up, my parents bought a house in suburban New Jersey, and my grandmother, Abuelita, lived in Washington Heights. So I spent my weekdays in the country in New Jersey and my weekends with Abuelita in the city, and realized that it was just enough experience to know that I didn't fit 100% in either world. And I think that's a pretty common experience for writers, is feeling a little bit outside of things. So in my family, we cope with that by being storytellers and using comedy to bridge anything we're trying to relate to or trying to understand. So I'm one of those families that will never use one word when 10 words will suffice. So that's kind of my beginning as a storyteller. And my parents, were great models for this. Like, if you ask my dad about being an immigrant, he's going to tell you, instead of giving you kind of a spiel, he's going to tell you a story about a delinquent Mexican boy who's basically reverse deported to the United States. And if you ask my mom about growing up Irish Catholic, she's going to tell you about an 8-year-old girl who got into a fight with a nun to protect her twin sister. So, like I said, we relate to each other through storytelling. So I went to college to ostensibly be pre-med. Turned out that was a terrible idea. Got involved with the student theater and graduated with 6 years of running a student theater and an English degree. So, the jobs were just all over the place, tons of opportunity. I chose to go into the theater. And that's where I realized that I actually wanted to be on the origin side of storytelling. I was getting to work with all these great plays. I was designing and directing, but I really wanted to be at the start of the process. I wanted to be that, first kid who gets to play in the sandbox. So after a number of years working with great theater artists, I decided to make the leap. I transitioned over to film because in the process of learning the different mediums, I realized that film was more in line with the kind of stories I wanted to be telling. Went to grad school at Columbia, New York, and came out to Los Angeles to, try my hand at this. And that's where I got hooked up with the great people at GTDI. And I think that's a very, short version of the story.
In a nutshell, love it. Well, Andrew, what was your experience like in the program? Who did you work with? Could you tell us what was the development and writing process like at the studio?
Absolutely. Just to start off with, I was really lucky. I got on the studio side. I got to work with the incredible GTI team. And then I was paired with an executive mentor, Lexi Barta, who helped guide a lot of my scripts. And then as my producing mentor, I got to work with Eva Longoria and her company, Unbelievable. And that was a great matchup just because it turns out that she and I are very interested in the same kinds of storytelling. So that's the cast of characters that I got to work with, and then just getting to see the kind of the inner workings of such a huge place like Universal. Let me back up. When you're first starting out as a writer, especially here in LA, the studio system, it seems kind of like a black box. Like it's really hard to know what's going on the other side of that wall. And the program is like an invitation into that world where you learn that, the process by which these films are developed, how the people at each stage of the process are involved, even, you know, what their specific jobs are, because it can be really tough to understand the process. It seems very complicated when you don't get to go and experience it hands-on. And my biggest takeaway from that is that once you're inside, you realize like how incredibly egalitarian the system is, that the best ideas really do rise, that it's a company of, you can correct me on the number, but it feels like thousands of people that are dedicated to telling great stories. And the moment you step onto that lot, you just feel supported and you feel like you're in this incredible creative energy. There's really, I can't say there's anything like it that I've experienced before. It's just, you know, an entire community of really smart people dedicated to making the greatest films that they can.
Love it. So how do you stay true to your identity and authentic voice as a writer, you know, whenever you do come into this giant studio system and create a universal high concept film?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think for me, it was a couple of extra steps, because my work primarily focuses on true stories, and by true stories, I mean kind of like the stranger than fiction, bizarre stuff that you don't usually expect. Like, for example, I did a piece about the pirate radio queen of Los Angeles, or Mark Twain's last road trip. And I think, when you come into a system like Universal and you're trying to be part of that voice, it can be a little tough at first to figure out how your perspective fits in. And what I did is I took it as an opportunity to explore outside of my model at first. You know, when I first got to Universal, I had been doing these true stories, these smaller films, and I realized that for the first time in my life, I had the opportunity to kind of expand that vision and try stuff that, I wouldn't normally even, consider trying, because I didn't have the resources behind me. So I wanted to make something that was, a big action adventure family movie, but a family movie from a perspective of people that don't typically get that kind of movie. When I was working in education in Harlem with the Family Children's Zone, the Harlem Children's Zone, I realized that my students really loved like the classic films like The Goonies, those kind of family action adventure films, but there was nothing that they could see themselves in. So I was like, okay, I'm at Universal. I've got this incredible opportunity. I want to bring my voice and my perspective in, but I want to do it in a way that fits, the greater voice of the studio. Let me try this out. And I got to pitch this project. I got to take it through development. Everybody loved it. It was something that was new and not necessarily love the script, but love the idea. It was something that was new. It was something that was different. And when I finished it, I realized I actually got to do that. I got to bring my voice to the high concept movie. And I think that's something that, a lot of really talented writers out there maybe don't see when they look at the studio system. They think like, oh, I can't go in there because I'm not going to be able to express the things that are important to me. I'm not going to be able to make the points that I want to make. And I found that that's just not true. That like the decision makers inside of the system, they're hungry for that stuff. They want to see different perspectives. They want to see different takes, both, they want to see, and they definitely want to see different takes on, the stuff that they know how to bring the studio's power behind, like the family action adventure film. They want that stuff. So I guess my circuitous piece of advice is that don't decide that this career path is closed off to you just because you feel like the films you're making or the films you're writing right now don't necessarily fit the model, because there definitely is space inside of that system for everybody's voice.
No, I love that response, Andrew, because I think, our goal too is to definitely demystify the studio system, but then also give you that platform, give writers and any creative talent that we work with a platform to bring their unique voice to a project. Sort of going back a little bit I want you to go a little bit more in detail into like the development process and the writing process. So can you talk about like the different steps that were involved in writing the 2 scripts?
Sure, just the step-by-step, yeah, absolutely. So you come into the program and the first couple of weeks are just sort of finding your feet, getting to know the people that you've been paired with, your advisors, the program staff, you know, how to find your way around the studio. I did get lost on the day of my interview. It is a very large place. So a lot of that goes in the first couple of weeks. And then you're sort of tasked with finding a list of ideas that fit both you and, you know, kind of what the studio is looking to develop. So, and like I said, in my case, I was doing, we got some advice saying, hey, we'd really love to see a family action adventure. I was like, okay, let me see what I can do with that. So you present a series of ideas to the team and to your executive, and working in conversation, you guys sort of, you know, narrow down that list, you decide on a couple, and then you take those to your producing mentor and talk about them almost like a real pitch, almost like as if you were pitching the project in a room, and together you decide which one you're going to write first. As Rosemary said, I think there are 2 scripts that you're going to do every year, so you kind of do this twice over the course of the program. The first time's a lot scarier than the second time. So you go through, once you get the green light on which piece you're doing, there's, you know, kind of traditional steps. You do a treatment, the treatment you get notes of the treatment, you do the draft, and then you turn the draft in, and then it's time to turn around and start on the second project. It's a very tight writing window, but it definitely, you know, I think for a lot of us, it's the first time that we get to just focus on writing for a year, which is huge. You know, everybody at our level usually has, you know, 1 to 4 day jobs that is competing with attention for, you know, competing for that mental space that your script should be occupying. And now you get a place where you get to just, you know, work on your script. Now, one of the coolest things that I haven't mentioned yet is that you get office space on the lot to develop these, you know, to work on the scripts. And the office that we got, we actually we had 2 spaces, and we chose to put all 6 writers into one room. And because we really liked each other at the beginning of the program. No, I'm kidding. It actually turned out to be amazing. It was almost like this little writer's room where everybody was so intimately aware of everybody else's projects that not only did you have the great feedback coming from the team and from your mentors, you also get to work with each other. And that's huge. That's absolutely huge, because we got so used to just bouncing things off each other over the course of the day that we would be in there, you know, 8-10 hours just working on scripts, just so we would have that resource, you know, those other voices, those other perspectives in the room with us. It helped us really turn out the best possible stuff. So back to your question, Michael. At the end, you end up with these 2 scripts that have gone through, you know, incredible, you know, revision with notes from all over, you know, from so many different voices, so many different people. And you end up with 2 really incredible scripts that can be used as samples post-program.
Totally. And just to add to that, because I just want to like give the audience even more information, sort of towards the end of the program, once the writers are in their second script process, we also factor in like post-program, and that's when we do talk about representation, who's looking for it, who's looking for those introductions, also meeting people across the studio, whether it is on the TV side or the cable side or with our term deal producers. So I think, you know, everything leads up to the 2 scripts, and then also hopefully post-program opportunities.
Yeah, if I could talk about that for a second, the thing I did not mention in the writing process is, of course, the roundtables and the meetings, the general meetings that you get. I think for the first couple of weeks, the roundtables are like, you know, almost like mind-blowing, because the people that all of a sudden you're sitting in a room with, having these extended conversations with, are people like you would just never get access to before the program. And I don't know if I should say names, because I don't know.
Say it. I actually was going to ask. I was going to be like, who? Yeah, if you want, just like say like what was the most memorable one? Which stood out to you?
It was like Nahnatchka Khan came in right after her movie came out on Netflix and was like just really like open with us. And I think she was there for like an hour and a half and just answering a bunch of questions and really honest about the process of her career. And the artists, the writers and the directors that came in, you know, incredible. But also the people from inside of Universal came in to just tell us a little bit about how the process works on there. And I remember and I believe I have the name right, Mike Knobloch from the music department just coming in and talking, for a while about how, music informs film. And, you see these titles on cards and you don't realize, oh, everybody here has, artistic input to what the final piece is going to be, like what that film's going to be, what the voice, what the entire package of that film's going to be. So yeah, those roundtables are, amazing.
And just so everyone's aware, Nachka Khan, she wrote and directed, Call Me Maybe with Ali Wong. And then Mike Knobloch is the president of film music at the studio. So he helps us with the Composers Initiative. Andrew, what was of all of those roundtables, was there a takeaway or a lesson that you learned that was sort of like the greatest takeaway?
The greatest takeaway, that's a hard question. I'd have to say, every writer goes through a cycle of feeling really confident about their work and feeling like they've made some sort of terrible mistake with their life. And I think the takeaway that I got from the roundtable is that feeling of, ups and downs, that feeling, in a business that's built so often on getting the word no before you get the word yes, it's really easy to fall into that trap. And every single person we met who has, achieved the level of success that we all, aspire to has said the same thing, which is you just have to keep pushing forward. And, maybe it sounds cliche, maybe it sounds like, obvious, but it's really great to hear that from people who are, doing great work, that even at that level, they still get more no's than they get yeses. And if you keep pushing at it and you keep taking the time to develop your skills, write as much as you possibly can. If you're a director, make as many projects as you possibly can. Just keep pushing against that wall, because there are doorways in that wall. There are always doorways in the wall, and I think the program is a huge doorway in that wall.
I love it. Well, speaking of the program, Andrew, do you have any tips for any writers who are thinking of applying to the Universal Writers Program? Anything that kind of helped you when you applied?
Yes, absolutely. It's always helpful before you set out to apply to a program to check out your network of people and see if there's people who have, well, who've gone through the program, because obviously like an extended conversation is always the best place to start. But the couple of takeaways I have is, obviously you want to put your best work forward, make sure that you're feeling good about the stuff that you're submitting. But the number one thing that I think a lot of people miss is that there's always an essay portion of the application. And I think a lot of people use the essay portion as a chance to try and reiterate their resume and, just talk about their experience. But I'm like, you're applying to be a storyteller. You want to impress with your ability to tell a story. The prompt is asking you to tell a story. Dive in on that. Tell a story about yourself. Tell a story about some moment in your life that determined your pathway, that set you on the path that has you here applying. I can't 100% remember mine, but I think it was a story that had to do with Reebok pump sneakers. Yeah, it's not. By this point, if they're reading your essay, they're no longer looking at your resume. You guys have decided that this person is worth considering. So this is a chance for you as an applicant to, reach out and speak about who you are directly and not just through your work, which is not something writers get to do all the time. So I would say definitely, spend a good portion of your time just asking yourself, is my essay an introduction for me, or is it just a description of me? You definitely want it to be an introduction. What do you guys think? Like, that's my take from my side of things. What do you think great tips would be for applicants?
Well, I think you nailed it with the essay. It definitely is something that people overlook, and we do take it very seriously. Of every application that comes through, we read every single one of those essays to make sure people are really setting themselves apart and leaving an impression too. Because I feel like whenever you're reiterating your resume, it's a bunch of information that is easy to get lost, but what really sticks with you are those very personal stories that no one else can replicate. So when, Andrew, you tell me that you tackled Nicole Kidman, like, I remember that forever. I'm like, what?
There's more to that
Um,
story.
Oh yes. Only if only we had more time, then I'd be
I
like,
know.
let's go into it.
Yeah.
It was an accident. I'm just gonna leave it at that.
And she's all right, clearly.
Yes. But I mean, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no,
Nico.
go finish, Rosemary.
Oh, I was just going to say, definitely whenever you're applying, take the time to craft a story that, can leave some kind of emotional resonance, about your life. I think that's the stuff that sticks with us whenever we're reading it, is like either, something that made us feel like, okay, this is a real person with a lot of lived experiences that can be used in the stories that they can make for this studio.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything Rosemary just said. And I want to add to it too. I think in telling those stories, don't be afraid to be vulnerable. And then also think about your voice, and are you being true to it? Like, especially in tone, because if you're someone who's saying that, if you're saying that you are a comedy writer and the essay that you present is really bleak and depressing, it's a little bit of a mismatch when we then read your script and we're like, maybe this person doesn't necessarily know what their voice is yet. But I think just being able to articulate your voice, but then also like bring it in, infuse that in the stories that you tell is really important, especially in this essay component. And then also, I think when you submit a script or the treatment, just think about who you're submitting it to. This is the Universal Writers Program. So just like look at what Universal has done and in the past, and just see if it does sort of line up in terms of like the high concept worlds that we present to the world, whether it's action, grounded horror, sci-fi, romantic comedies, so I think that's something to definitely consider and think about when you are applying as well. Well, Andrew, do you have any final parting words for the writers, directors, and creative talent in this audience?
Yeah, I would say, just the fact that you guys are, watching this today and, participating in the New York Latino Film Festival, either as a filmmaker or, as a writer or, as a guest, that's great, because filmmaking is all about community. I think I said before in your application question, like, what's the first step? And my first step was to find someone that I knew who had been through the program and, sit down and talk with them. And I was only able to do that because of the filmmaking community that's around me. So, whatever defines your community is less important than your participation in that community. Like, make sure that you just surround yourselves with people that are supportive, that bring good energy, that, will help you every step of the way, and make sure that you pay that back, tenfold. Every time you have a chance to help somebody else along the way, help them, because ultimately, like, our art form is the most cooperative. Our art form is the one that, you can't make films in a vacuum. So yeah, I guess my takeaway is that it's great to be part of this community today, and I hope to see all of you in the future.
I love it. And Andrew, before we go, I also just want to say that one thing that we always tell the talent that come into our programs is that it's, you're here for this program or initiative for a certain amount of time, but you're always part of the family, and that never stops. So, we'll always support you and whoever comes into these programs.
It really
does.
Awesome. Thank you for everything.
And for everyone who's watching, I just want to reiterate where you can learn more about our programs and initiatives and the opportunities to apply. So you can learn more on our website, which is universaltalentdevelopment.com, and then also on our social media handles, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram @unitalentdev. And that's where you'll find any updates on applications that are coming. The next one is going to be the live action writers program. So look out for that later this fall. And with that, we're gonna pass it over to Grace Moss and Janice Cardoso on the NBC Entertainment side.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Michael and Rosemary and Andrew, for a great conversation for our filmmakers out there. And now this conversation is really going to be focused about opportunities in television. So we are really stoked to be here and really share with you the multiple opportunities that we have at NBC Entertainment. So again, my name is Grace Moss, and I'm one of the senior directors for the Talent Development and Inclusion team. And then I'll let Jandice introduce herself as well.
Hi guys, I'm Jandice Estrada Cardoso. I'm the other Senior Director of Talent Development at NBC Entertainment. Our department is usually referenced to by our popular name Talent Infusion Programs. So we're gonna jump into that and tell you guys a little bit about everything that you can apply for. Obviously, if you're already watching this seminar, you are devoted to the craft. You're here to dig in and get ready to take your career to the next steps with us, hopefully. So we're gonna show you what we have to offer.
So as Janice mentioned, we actually have a ton of programs for both in front of the camera and behind the camera. So we're just gonna give a very brief overview, about 15 minutes or so, and then we're gonna dive into our conversation with one of the alums from our programs, S.J. Munoz. So let us start off. So first and foremost, we wanted to briefly share what our core values are at NBC Entertainment. That's human first, fundamentally positive, inherent ingenuity, and our newest pillar is intentionally inclusive. And we often say that this pillar is dedicated to our department because everything that we do is about being inclusive and really trying to expand our talent pool and our reach and bring new voices to the table. And so, we do have 3 directing programs. We're going to use our time with SJ to talk about a lot of the logistics with these programs, but just as an overview, we have the Emerging Directing Program, which was formerly known as the Directing Fellowship Program, and that is now for diverse male directors. And then we have Female Forward, which is for female directors. Both of those are for scripted programming. And then on our unscripted side, we have the Alternative Directors Program, which is also a fairly new program. And it's for those of you who want to be directing shows like The Voice, World of Dance, American Ninja Warrior, and your forte is more in those bigger formatted reality shows or docuseries. And I'll toss it to Janice to talk about Stand Up NBC.
Thanks. As you guys probably know, our motto is comedy starts here at NBC. So every year I go out on a national tour. We hit 5 cities across America to search for comedians. You can submit online. You can come to an open call. Our goal is for 2021 to have submissions opening in March. So look out for that. We have a lot of alumni that have come through. If you guys have ever watched Julio Torres or Vladimir Camanu, they are alumni of our program. Vladimir actually wrote and starred in his own pilot that we produced at NBC. In the 6 years I've been overseeing the program, we've had 11 finalists premiere on Jimmy Fallon. We have writers on Fallon. Julio wrote on SNL. We have writers on series like Brooklyn Nine-Nine. So you can get in and transition either as a stand-up, a host. Amanda Seals was also a part of our alumni. She hosted Bring the Funny, a series that premiered last season with 5 of our alumni that also competed on the show. So we have a lot of avenues here for you to take once we meet you as a stand-up, for you to take next steps and follow through. So we'd love for you guys to just follow us on our socials. You can get in on that. At the end of the finale season, we offer a talent holding deal to our champions. And just 2 weeks ago, Variety Magazine announced our current champion, one of the top 20 comedians to watch. So very, very proud of this program. Look for it in 2021.
Cool. Awesome. And so moving back to behind the camera, our 10-pole writers program is Writers on the Verge. It's been in existence for over 15 years. And so for those of you who want to get into episodic writing, this is the program for you. It really serves as a bridge For writers who have a really strong portfolio of scripts and work, they just haven't yet been staffed. But this is a program where we're not really teaching you how to write a new sample. You already have that body of work, but we're helping just polish you a little bit so that when staffing season comes around, you are ready to go. The submission window for that is every May, and then the program itself starts in the fall, and we work on writing one new sample, maybe two, depending on how your progress is moving along. And then the back half of the program, which usually goes from January through March, is table reads, which Jandis casts with incredible actors, both from NBC and from our programs. And then we also have showrunner meetings. We have a workshop on personal branding. We also bring in network executives to talk to you about the landscape and really teach you on what the development process is and how a project moves from development into current programming and what that creative journey is like. So it's a really great program for those of you who want to ultimately get into the writer's room. I'll say last year we had 2,500 writers, and every year we take 8. So it's usually 4 drama and 4 comedy. So it is highly competitive, but again, you guys become part of the NBC family and become talent that we ultimately do push to get on our shows. So that is a great program to consider. And then I'll toss to Jandis to talk about casting opportunities.
Oh yes, so this is one of the opportunities sort of behind the camera, but highly influential for in front of the camera. If you're the type of person that loves watching actors and you want to become a casting director, this is the program for you. So if you get in, you will have the opportunity to work on an NBC series and help them find the next co-stars and guest stars and even series regulars. You can work on a pilot or you can work on one of our ongoing series. And we've also had a variation of this program on the executive track where you get to spend time and become a sort of mentee of our executive casting directors. We've had alumni go on to be executives at Fox, at Apple, and we have 2 that are currently full-time hires now at the casting office in New York and for Universal Television, the studio here in Los Angeles. So if this is something that sounds interesting for you, we'll probably open this up again in 2021.
All right, so for the comedies out there, we have the Late Night Writers Workshop, and this is the only network-led program of its kind that's dedicated to the late night space. This program, we just completed our 8th year in August, and it is a really, really successful program. We have staffed writers not only in our late night shows, but also in our scripted shows and alternative shows. A wonderful example is Jenny Hagel, who was part of the inaugural class in 2013, and she is now an Emmy Award-winning writer on The Late Show with Seth Meyers and is going to be showrunning Amber Ruffin's new series on Peacock. And she is a Latinx writer that we are so proud of, and we've been able to be in business with her for multiple years. So great success story there. So this workshop is similar to Writers on the Verge in that we are looking for writers who already know how to write packets and already know how to construct jokes. But this really offers just a little bit more polishing so that we can really groom you for staffing on our series. The workshop is usually about 5 or so days versus the multiple months in Writers on the Verge. So it is a very specific and intentional curriculum. So we spend 1 day throughout the week to focus on one component on the packets. So that's desk bits, sketches, and monologue jokes. And then we also have guest speakers come throughout the week to talk to you, all the participants. And we've had folks like Aparna Nancharla, Jenny Hagel, of course, and Amber Ruffin, to the EVP of Late Night and the showrunners on multiple late night shows on our air. So it really is a fantastic opportunity, again, to get staffed either on the late night space, alternative, or primetime scripted shows. So that is definitely something to consider. The submission window for this workshop is typically in the spring for a late summer workshop. We also have below the line programs. So these are fairly new, and we definitely saw that there was a need for opportunities below the line, and behind the camera. So the production assistant program, this is really an initiative where we have asked all of our primetime shows to have at least one diverse PA in their productions. And thankfully, many of them already do, but we like to be a resource. And so we have a whole database of diverse PAs. So whenever there is a need, they come to us directly, and we're able to provide them with great candidates to consider for all of our shows. The production office coordinator program is a shadowing program where somebody who is about the key PA or assistant production office coordinator level will be able to shadow a production office coordinator either in our scripted shows or our unscripted shows. In our inaugural year, we had 2 of each. So it's a great opportunity to be in those production office from prep all the way through wrap of each production. So it's several months, and there is a stipend paid while you are shadowing, on each show. Last year on the scripted side, we had participants on Good Girls and Superstore. So these are really successful shows that these participants can be involved in. Because of the pandemic this year, we are not moving forward with a cycle for this current season, but we hope to reopen that submission window again next spring for the following TV season. So that's something to keep on your radar for next year.
And I'll go ahead and tell you guys a little bit more about our other partners. Just besides the New York Latino Film Festival, we engage across the country with several groups. You'll see here the National Association of Latino Independent Producers, East-West Players, Respectability, American Black Film Festival, the Skins Fest. And for every single one of these engagements, we try to come forward and also make sure that you realize you are invited to our house to be at our table, to break bread with us and create with us. One of our newer groups that's not listed here is Nosotros. They're the oldest American nonprofit organization for the arts, specifically for Latinx actors. And we just closed our submission window for a monologue slam competition with 500 submissions plus, climbing up now to 600. And essentially the winner of that monologue competition will have a lot of prizes associated with our networks and studios, meetings with casting directors, a wardrobe allowance, tuition-free classes for acting, improv, and writing. So we try to make sure that with every one of these organizations we engage with, we find the talent, we meet you, and try to see where we can pipeline you into our shows. And if you want to keep up with all of the organizations that we work with and all of our submission windows for these great programs, you can follow us on social, on Facebook. We're NBCUniversal Talent Infusion Programs, on Twitter and Instagram at NBCUTIPS for Talent Infusion Programs, and then on our website, www.nbcuni.com. And like we said, with this year shifting into a new virtual world, we are going to be shifting our submission windows. So just follow us, and you'll get the most up-to-date announcements when we open. And with that, I'm going to introduce one of our favorite alumni who is recently out of our Female Forward Directing program. Give us a warm welcome for S.J. Main Muñez.
Thanks, Jandice. Hey, SJ,
Sure.
Good to see you. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. New York Latino Film Festival is amazing, and so I'm so honored to be here. And congratulations to all of the accepted participants. Your step that you've taken just to get into the film festival is another step towards the professional work you hope to be doing soon.
Awesome. So we are really, really happy to have you here because you have actually gone through our Female Forward program, one of our directing programs, and we just want to have a conversation to just talk about your experience and through that be able to share some details about the program with our viewers here today. So with that, to start us off, there's obviously multiple directing fellowships out there in the industry at the different networks and the studios. What about this specific program really, really appeal to you? And why did you want to apply to this one specifically?
Absolutely. As an emerging director, the inclusion programs are so vital to us finding opportunities. The programs can be important for a variety of reasons. It can be networking, it can be workshopping and honing your craft. But what really makes the NBC Universal development programs stand out, and especially for directors, is they give you work. And that is beyond what you expect from most of these programs that you participate in. And so the chance to actually be given an episode really confirms that you are taking a big leap and you're becoming a professional director. So of course, that's what makes Female Forward and the Emerging Director Program super well known for all the directors, and it makes it the best.
Great. So, and in follow-up to that, whenever we talk about these programs, one of the questions we get asked most frequently is, how much experience do you need? I just graduated from film school. Can I do this? Or I've never shadowed. Is this something I can still apply to? So can you talk about your prior directing experience when you had submitted to the program, just to paint a picture as far as the type of resume we're looking for our participants?
Yeah, I think it's important to know when it's the right time in your career to apply to a particular program. Female Forward and the Emerging Director programs are definitely a program when you're about to work. So I really encourage all of the applicants to make short films, win awards. And I don't say just make one award-winning short film. I think you need to make multiple. I had probably, produced 20 and directed at least 6 award-winning shorts by the time that I knew I was ready for episodic. I also think it's invaluable. You have to have shadowed before. So any opportunity, I know that the landscape is changing, but meet with directors, have conversations via Zoom. If you can get on set and shadow, that's super important. I also think reading about directors' processes and going to lectures and attending as many programs as you can will get you ready. The last thing I have to say really is, I think it's important that you know you want to direct episodic, because episodic is very different than feature directing. And, some people want to direct features, but they can't figure out how to break in, and they think, oh, well, as a backup plan, I'll direct episodic. I say, if you want to direct episodic, make sure your heart's in it. It's very unique. It's very fast paced. It's a wonderful environment, but it's good to know what it is before you apply. And there's a lot of, Google, there's a lot of opportunities out there to get familiar with what episodic is before you apply.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think that is great advice. And I think because we're in this sort of, we've been saying this for years, this golden age of television, like there's so much great content. It is a wonderful opportunity to actually get your foot in the door that way. And there's just always a need for great female directors and great women of color to be out there. So, before everybody's assignment starts, we really try to have everybody attend a series of workshops with the Alliance of Women Directors, and that covers everything from shadowing to working with actors to post. And so I know that you were able to join for most, if not all of those sessions a couple summers ago, and I'm just curious if there are any highlights of that series, because this is something that we really pride ourselves on as far as bringing in these veteran directors to speak to all of our participants, so that they are really well prepared for their assignment. So any standout moments or highlights from that series?
Yeah, this series was amazing. Those workshops, I remember that they varied from improving your reel, your director's reel, and taking a hard look at it. They put up a few reels and people would have to, you give notes and get notes, receive notes from executives, and then you could go home and really make that more powerful. We revised bios, we revised our resumes. One standout workshop I specifically remember was with Hanalei Culpepper, and she is this amazing, she's a woman of color. You know her work from Star Trek, Kung Fu, Nosferatu, SWAT, and dozens more. She came in and she was able to really tell us the episodic process from her point of view. and give us tips. And no tip is too small. Like, you'll be on set and a tip that you will have learned, 2 years prior will come up on where to stand. Do you stand at the small monitors, or do you stay in Video Village? And so the workshops were amazing. Absolutely amazing.
That's awesome. I'm glad that was helpful. And I'll say too, Hanley is actually an alum of our program as well. And to see her just be so successful is really, really amazing. And now to come back and pay it forward to, the current class is just a great blessing. And we're so happy to have her in our universe. So with that, shadowing is a big component of the program. And with Female Forward, or the Emerging Directing Program, we cover directors to shadow on up to 2 episodes of their assigned series. And you were able to be on Chicago Med. So can you just talk about that experience? Like, how long were you gone for, and the type of access that you got through shadowing?
Yes, absolutely. That's one of the most special components of what Female Forward can give you in the Emerging Directors Program, which is the opportunity to shadow. So what is shadowing? For those that don't know, it is literally being in the shadow behind a director. So you could follow them to all of the meetings. You sit, in a chair somewhat near and hear them discuss, if it be special effects that are needed for a scene, or visual effects, or how to shoot that car chase, or casting sessions. I was able to sit in those. And that was an amazing experience. I was there for 2 episodes back to back. So it was a total of about 6 weeks. It's 3 weeks per episode. And NBC treats you wonderfully. You're taken care of. There's transportation. And I was able to shadow the executive producer, producing director of Chicago Med, Michael Pressman. And then after that, prior to that, a director, also woman of color, Nicole Rubio. And wow, the access, because I was a director, an observing director about to direct, it was incomparable to any shadowing experience I had had prior. Because, when you shadow, of course, everyone's respectful, but you haven't had booked. So that's the different thing about the NBC Universal program, is that they know you're about to come in. So you're treated a little bit differently. You're taken a little bit seriously, but also you're expected to bring a little bit more. So it goes both ways. And I loved it. I think, what I learned from every single step, there were long hours, and it was as close as I could get to doing the real thing.
Yeah. And one thing, I'm curious, this actually we didn't cover in our prep, but I would love for you to just talk about your experience, because when you had shadowed, you also just recently had a baby, and you brought your family with you to Chicago. And I feel like often in these panels, just the idea of being a parent really isn't covered. And I think it's such an important conversation. I obviously have a child myself. And so as, working professionals in this industry, there is a lot to juggle and to consider. And if you can just talk about that experience, like how you were able to manage both, being a mom and also having to shadow on set with this once in a lifetime opportunity. I'd love to hear you just sort of expand on that and how you made it work.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think, as those families out there, women and be it men, who are thinking about having families, or who already have families and are thinking, oh, my opportunities are out. That's not true. I actually remember I had my interviews for Female Forward, literally one right before I gave birth, I think 3 days, and then the second one 2 weeks after I had given birth. So it is possible. I think it's just a matter of, while you're going to be supported in the program, I still think that it's a matter of maintaining an awareness of where your priority is. And of course, we take care of our babies, we take care of our children, but I think I still put 1,000% effort into the experience. It was wonderful that NBC Universal supported me having my family there. I was able to see them, even though it was maybe an hour in the morning before I left, or on the weekends, they were there, and they knew mommy was around and mommy was working, and could have breakfast on a Saturday. But I do think it's important to don't think that your dreams are over. You can still manage to do it all, and you can do them both very, very well.
Yeah. And one other point I want to share, when we had done a similar panel on this topic, I think a year ago, you had mentioned that, just as a working professional in this industry, you often have to deal with sometimes just the guilt of maybe not being there for your kids. And I think one thing you had mentioned on a panel was when you're talking to your children, that you frame it in a way of like, you get to go to work versus you have to go to work. And that's something, I don't think I've shared this with you, but that's something I now share with my son when I have to do, work after I put him down, or just do something that's, not family related. And I think that's really a really great way of framing this for our children as well. Like, this is a great opportunity. We want to be wonderful at our job. And so I think that's important.
I remember when the article came out about Female Forward with the photos and everything, and I remember being able to share with my daughter, who's 5, like, look, and explain to her, this is this amazing program that is helping your mommy be a professional director. And then through the process, like shadowing even, and coming home on the weekends, even when I was working, and explaining to her, like, we have a hospital, but it's not a real hospital. And to explain to children so they understand how much passion you have for what you do, but also how entertainment works. I mean, it's cool to think about the next generation and introduce it to them.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's great. You're, I'm sure, a very wonderful inspiration for your children. So my next question, going back to shadowing, like you said, you had such great access and opportunities. What would you say was your biggest takeaway from just that shadowing component? Was there something that you learned that you were able to utilize when you were helming your episode? Anything, whether it's tangible or just a soft skill that you sort of were able to practice on set?
I feel so lucky that I was paired up with Michael Pressman. Again, he's the executive producer, producing director, and a director of Chicago Med. Producing directors are, for those that don't know, it's a role where they're a director, but they're also in charge of, bringing each director in, bringing them up to speed on how a show works, kind of giving them tips so they're super successful. And watching him as a shadow was unbelievable. I mean, he is like the epitome of an actor's director, and watching him give notes to actors, the energy that he brings to set, it's like he's a cheerleader, but he's also super fun. I think that's something maybe we forget too. Sometimes we're on set and the hours are long, but man, if you can make it fun for people and they are having a great time, that's what Michael does. And every moment learning from him, he talk about a person who has passion and loves what he does, but it's such a gift to be able to learn from him early on in my career. And I feel like shape now how I work more like Michael. That's been a real gift.
Wow, that's great. Now, with that, you absolutely crushed your episode. Whenever the directors finish their assignment, we actually have one-on-one calls with each show just to get feedback, any blind spots, any areas of opportunity, how could we be doing our job better. And when we had our call regarding SJ, which he was not on, this was with the current executive, the studio, they said it couldn't have gone any better, and that she was an absolute joy and such a professional, and they are so stoked to now have this relationship with her. And so, because you had such a successful experience, I'm curious if you can talk about how you plan to leverage this opportunity into just to further your career in general.
Absolutely. Good question. And nice to hear that it went well.
They adored you. Like, it was just glowing. It was really so good to hear. And I'm not surprised because you are such a star. So.
Yeah, I mean, a quick note on that. It's like when any program, but, Female Forward and the Emerging Directors Program, you have to remember that it's like, or you feel, I shouldn't say you should remember, but all of us feel that we have the weight on our backs of the future. And so it's like, when you're going out, you've got to do a good job. You don't just need to deliver for yourself, but for all the women of color that are coming up. So, it's a big responsibility, but I know, I was positive I could deliver, and I know that all of the next directors who will come through this program will also deliver. I would say, in terms of leveraging the experience, you almost have to do well. And that's why I also think it's important that everyone come before you apply, really know your craft, know which shows you want to direct, like hone your skills. And then once you deliver, which you need to do, and do your episode well, you need to do the next one well. So the hope is that I will return to Chicago Med or another Wolf show in the coming year or two, and I will deliver, and I will do even better than I did the first time. And that I know will open doors. And then from there, it's like, maintain relationships you have at other networks, because those doors will open as well once they see that you've impressed your partners over at another network. And that's vital. It's just one step in front of the other, and all the time bringing all that experience that you gained through directing your short films, through writing, whatever it is you're doing, bringing that into making sure that you put it all out on the table when you get that opportunity to direct.
That's awesome. Now, in our industry, we all know it's all about relationships and who you know. And can you just talk about what your approach is to networking, whether it's with the network or with fellow directors and content creators, and how you build your rapport with others in the industry? What's your process?
Yeah, I don't, probably like a lot of those out there, I didn't come from an industry family. I come Costa Rican American. I have nobody that's in the film industry. So establishing a network was challenging. I won't lie. It takes a while, but you just, as many panels as you can attend, as many people as you can meet. I also think sometimes we forget that our colleagues are super important. Our colleagues that are in that writing program with you, or for you filmmakers in the festival right now, that other guy who has a film short, get to know them, because they're probably the next executive, or they could be the next showrunner. And then once you have those relationships, like anything, it should be fun. They're friendships, but you also maintain them. Now with the pandemic is a super good time to check in on people, and everyone needs that right now. So check in and ask, how are you doing? And make sure people are smiling and they feel connected. And I think also the most important thing is always being grateful, because the people that give you opportunities, they went out of their way. Like, they stand on the edge for you, because they know you'll deliver, but you need to really thank those people in any way you can whenever you have the opportunity. And I think that's the way to create not just a strong network, but a family around you.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think just staying on people's radars, like, even if you've been in the program a year ago, just to check in, for us, and I'm sure for Michael and Rosemary too, we work with so many talented filmmakers and content creators and actors, and it's hard to just chase everybody down for updates or updated reels, or see how their, latest short went. So it actually helps us help you when you reach out to us and give us updates, so that we're not, trying to figure out what everybody's working on.
I had an executive too from another network. I remember she said something like, anytime a show comes out that you think you're right for, or something. And then also, if you have new news, it's like, reach out to them. So I know a lot of executives want you to reach out, or like you said, want to keep them informed. Like, look, that new, for me, like a new Western's coming out. I'm the Western girl, so keep me in mind. So I think as much as you can do, like you said, remind people that you exist. That's important.
Absolutely. And then I think the last question for us, you've been so helpful with all this insight. If you can close us out and just share any final tips or advice that you have for other filmmakers who want to be doing episodic like yourself, whether it's how to get into these programs, just how to, keep a positive attitude, especially with all these opportunities, with the pandemic being a little bit minimized. Any parting words of advice for the group?
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much you could be doing now. I know, I'm with you. We feel like, oh my gosh, people say go shoot something. You're like, shoot, how do I shoot right now? If you're not the kind that's willing to go out and shoot on your phone, and if you are that kind, go and do it, because I'm sure a lot of film festivals will be crowded with films shot on iPhones in the next year or two. But for those that aren't, you can still hone your craft. And so these are a few tips I have. I think it's super important as an emerging director, and especially a Latino director, is to know your brand. And so what I would recommend is go watch all the shows you can and find out which shows you love, because that way you can, and also look at your work realistically. Like, how does my work with the shows I want to be on? If they don't work, start shooting stuff that's more like what you want to make. And then if you know that the stuff you're shooting is your brand, find shows that match that. Those are the executives you need to be in contact. Those are the relationships you need to be carving out. And I also think now's a good time to write. And I think even those the directors that don't think you want to write, you should know how to write, because writing is super important. Once you get your episode and you're reading your script, if you can't break down story points and understand the acts and the arcs, you're going to be lost. So there's nothing as good as having a knowledge of screenwriting. Beyond that, I just want to say that I think, increasing Latino representation is super important. That's been my mission, my whole life. So those of you, when you get the opportunity, always include Latinos wherever you can. If it be casting, I tried to do that in Chicago Med. I said, where are the Latino actors? Bring them to me. Anything you can, making your films, showing those authentic new Latino stories we haven't seen. And, mixing it up. So, you can show that you can do action. You can show you can do different types of work. And congratulations to all of you for getting to where you're at. And I know there's going to be amazing, amazing directors out there coming forth pretty soon.
That's awesome. Thank you, SJ, so much for being here and dropping all these gems, for the group. It's so helpful. So with that is the end of our panel. We'll toss it back to Maria.
To sign off, I would just like to say thank you to our friends at NBCUniversal for their continued support of the New York Latino Film Festival. It's with NBCUniversal support that we're able to present panels like these as a resource for our filmmakers. Thank you specifically to SJ and to Andrew for sharing their firsthand experiences. And thank you to Grace, Jandis, Michael, and Rosemary for driving these conversations and for taking a deep dive into the initiatives presented by NBCUniversal. And I hope all of our viewers gain some insight into the NBC Talent Pipeline programs, and you're all walking away with some kind of valuable information for your career path. And again, thank you all for watching.